The sun rose slowly over the military base, painting the sky with soft orange and pink colors. The barracks stood quietly, with a few soldiers moving about, preparing for the day. Among them, a young soldier named Daniel already had his sleeves rolled up. He carried a lawnmower toward the stretch of grass outside the main barracks. It was early, and most of the other soldiers were still in the mess hall or cleaning their rooms. Daniel, however, did not wait for anyone to ask him to work. He simply believed that if something needed to be done, it should be done well. Daniel was not the kind of soldier who sought attention. He did not care about being recognized or praised. His actions were quiet and purposeful. As he pushed the mower across the grass, the humming of the engine mixed with the sounds of birds and the occasional distant shout of a sergeant giving orders. The lawn was large and uneven, with patches that had grown longer than usual because the base had been busy preparing for incoming inspections. To Daniel, it was simple. Keeping the barracks neat was part of taking care of the place that cared for all of them. As he worked, other soldiers walked past him, some noticing his effort, some not. A few would nod politely or give a small smile, but no one stopped to help or comment. Daniel did not mind. He knew that his work made a difference, even if no one said it out loud. He had learned early in life that true satisfaction often came from doing what was right, not from receiving applause. His father, a retired sergeant, had always taught him that humility and hard work were more valuable than recognition. Daniel had arrived at this base a few months ago. He was new to this particular unit, but had already gained a reputation for reliability. He was quiet, dependable, and willing to take on tasks that others sometimes avoided. Some soldiers preferred to stick to their scheduled duties or wait for orders, but Daniel took initiative. He believed that every small action mattered, and the barracks lawns were no exception. The grass, neatly cut and clean, was more than just a visual appeal. It represented discipline, pride, and respect for their surroundings. As the mower moved across the grass, Daniel's mind wandered. He thought about his family back home, his younger brother who often followed him around helping in the garden, and the lessons his father had shared. "You do things for the right reasons and people will notice eventually," his father had said. Daniel had always held on to that thought. He did not know when recognition would come or if it ever would, but it did not bother him. The act of serving quietly and sincerely was reward enough. During that morning, Daniel encountered a few small challenges. Some parts of the lawn had uneven soil, and the mower occasionally got stuck. He paused, adjusted the blades, and continued without frustration. Other soldiers were busy with drills and morning exercises, but Daniel's focus remained steady. He knew the importance of persistence. Sometimes leadership was not about giving orders. It was about taking responsibility even in small tasks. That morning, the responsibility of the lawns rested entirely on Daniel's shoulders, and he carried it with dedication. A few younger soldiers watched him from the steps of the barracks. They whispered quietly, impressed by the calm determination of their peer. One of them, a private named Lewis, finally asked, "Why are you mowing the lawns?" "Isn't that supposed to be the maintenance crew's job?" Daniel smiled gently and replied, "Someone has to do it. The base is our home while we are here. We take care of it." Lewis nodded slowly, absorbing the simplicity of the answer. It was not about rules or orders. It was about doing the right thing. By mid-morning, Daniel had nearly finished the first side of the lawn. Sweat ran down his face, but he wiped it with the back of his hand and kept going. The sound of the mower cutting through the grass was rhythmic, almost calming. Every stroke left a line of neat, short grass behind him. Each line was a small accomplishment, a visible result of effort and discipline. For Daniel, the sight of a perfectly mowed lawn was satisfying in itself, a silent message that hard work and patience produced results. Throughout the morning, small moments highlighted Daniel's character. A stray paper caught in the mower was gently lifted and thrown into the trash. A small patch of weeds near the fence was pulled carefully by hand. He treated each task with respect, no matter how minor it seemed. Observing him, one could see that his actions were a reflection of inner values rather than obligation. He was not performing for anyone's approval. He was performing because it was right. While Daniel worked, the barracks remained busy in the background. Soldiers moved in formation, drills continued, and the occasional loud command echoed across the grounds. Yet Daniel's world seemed separate, focused on his immediate task. He did not rush, he did not complain, and he did not pause for recognition. The simplicity of his work contrasted with the complexity of military life, and in that quiet act, there was an elegance that could easily go unnoticed if one did not pay attention. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, some officers walked past, observing the orderly appearance of the base. Few realized that the freshly mowed lawn was the result of Daniel's quiet effort. They saw the neat grass and assumed it had always looked that way, or that the maintenance team had done it. But for Daniel, the unseen effort did not matter. What mattered was integrity, doing what was right and leaving a positive mark, however quietly. By late morning, Daniel finished mowing the entire area. He turned off the mower and looked at the neatly trimmed grass. The lawn looked pristine, with straight lines and uniform length. He felt a quiet pride, not of arrogance, but of satisfaction. The work was done, and it was done well. For a moment he simply stood and admired the result, feeling a sense of accomplishment that needed no words. As he walked back toward the barracks, a few soldiers paused to give a small nod of appreciation. "Good work, Daniel," one said quietly. He smiled and replied, "Thanks. Just doing my part." There was no fanfare, no announcement, only a simple acknowledgement. Yet in that small interaction, Daniel felt the subtle ripple of respect forming among those who had observed him. It was small, almost invisible, but it mattered. Daniel returned the mower to the shed and wiped his hands on his uniform. He joined the other soldiers for the next set of duties, blending seamlessly into the background. He was just another soldier, doing what needed to be done unnoticed by most. But in that quiet morning, he had left a mark on the barracks that went beyond the trimmed grass. It was a mark of character, humility, and quiet dedication. A mark that would not remain unnoticed for long, though Daniel did not know it yet. The afternoon sun was bright over the barracks, casting long shadows on the freshly mowed lawns. The base was busy as always, with soldiers running drills, performing checks on equipment, and attending briefings. Daniel had just finished his morning work, yet he felt a quiet restlessness. He walked slowly along the edge of the lawn, straightening a few uneven patches he had missed earlier. It was not required, but he believed in doing things properly. Each movement was careful, deliberate, and thoughtful. As he worked, a few soldiers passed by, chatting about their routines. Some mentioned upcoming inspections, and one or two spoke casually about high-ranking officers visiting the base. Daniel listened, half-interested, but he did not concern himself with such matters. To him, an officer's visit was just another day. He did not expect anyone to notice the extra effort he had put into the lawns. His mind stayed focused on the task at hand as it always did. Suddenly, a black car rolled slowly along the driveway toward the barracks. It was unmistakably official, polished, heavy, and commanding attention without a single word. Daniel paused, watching it approach. Two officers stepped out, straight and formal, followed by a man whose presence seemed larger than life. This was no ordinary visitor. This was someone important. The man walked with authority, yet his eyes scanned the surroundings carefully, noticing details others might miss. Daniel instinctively straightened his posture, brushing his hands on his pants. As the man approached the lawn he had worked on, the man's uniform was pristine, adorned with medals and insignia that gleamed in the sunlight. He moved deliberately with a sense of purpose that seemed to demand respect. As he came closer, Daniel realized that this was a colonel, a high-ranking officer whose presence could change the course of a day with a single word. The colonel's eyes were sharp, observant, and almost piercing. He looked at the trimmed grass, then at the few soldiers nearby, and finally, his gaze settled on Daniel. The colonel's voice cut through the quiet hum of the base. "Who took care of this lawn?" he asked. It was a simple question, but it carried weight. The soldiers nearby exchanged glances. Some shrugged, others mumbled excuses, assuming the maintenance team was responsible. Daniel, standing a few feet away, did not move at first. He had not expected to be asked, and he had certainly not expected to be noticed by someone so high-ranking. The colonel walked closer, his boots crunching on the gravel path. He looked at Daniel directly, his expression curious yet commanding. "You did this?" he asked. Daniel nodded quietly. "Yes, sir," he replied, his voice calm and steady. He did not boast, he did not exaggerate. He simply stated the truth. The colonel studied him for a moment, then asked another question, one that surprised Daniel. "Why didn't you tell them? Why didn't you ask for recognition?" Daniel blinked, momentarily taken aback. He had never thought about recognition. He had done the work because it needed to be done, not because he wanted anyone to notice. "Sir," he said slowly, I didn't think it was necessary. The lawn needed care. I just wanted it done right." The colonel nodded, a faint smile forming on his face. His eyes seemed to soften slightly, yet there was a spark of admiration in them. The officers accompanying the colonel looked on, some impressed, some puzzled. They had expected a routine inspection, perhaps a formal report, but instead they saw a young soldier who had taken initiative quietly, without fanfare, without complaint. The colonel stepped closer, lowering his voice slightly so only Daniel could hear. "That is rare," he said. "Most people would ask for recognition, for credit. You did this because it was right." Daniel felt a mix of pride and humility, unsure how to respond. Words seemed unnecessary. The colonel's recognition, quiet and sincere, was enough. Around them, the barracks seemed to pause for a moment. Soldiers watching from a distance whispered among themselves, curious about the interaction. Some had seen Daniel work before, but they had not realized the full effort and dedication involved. The colonel's attention highlighted what had gone unnoticed for weeks: the patience, discipline, and quiet service of a soldier who cared deeply about his environment and his comrades. The colonel turned to the other officers. "This is the kind of dedication we want to see everywhere. Not for show, not for praise, but because it is the right thing to do," he said firmly. His voice carried across the lawn, and Daniel noticed that some soldiers straightened in surprise, understanding the weight of his words. Recognition had arrived, not as an award or ceremony yet, but as respect and acknowledgement from someone who truly understood what it meant to serve with integrity. Daniel felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride certainly, but also humility. He had never considered that a simple act, mowing the lawn, doing the work quietly, could have such significance. It was a lesson he had always known in theory. Doing good for its own sake mattered. But hearing it from a colonel, someone who had lived a life of leadership and service, made the lesson real. Daniel realized that small acts, when performed with sincerity, could ripple outward, touching lives in ways one might never predict. The colonel walked alongside Daniel as he continued to inspect the lawn. He asked questions about the condition of the grass, how long it had been since it was last trimmed, and whether Daniel had help. Each answer Daniel gave was honest and precise. The colonel seemed to value truth and diligence above all else. He paused at a small patch of weeds, and Daniel explained how he had removed them by hand earlier in the morning. The colonel smiled, clearly impressed by the attention to detail and dedication. After a few minutes, the colonel stepped back and looked over the entire lawn. "This is more than just grass," he said thoughtfully. "It shows responsibility, pride, and respect. These are qualities that make a soldier truly remarkable." Daniel felt a warmth in his chest, a recognition that went beyond awards or medals. It was validation of his quiet approach to life and service. The idea that actions, not words, spoke louder than any announcement. The officers around them nodded in agreement. A few younger soldiers approached, curious and eager. They asked Daniel questions about his methods, how he managed to maintain the lawn so well, and how long it took him. Daniel answered patiently, sharing tips and advice. He did not boast. He simply shared knowledge, continuing the pattern of humility that had defined him from the start. The younger soldiers listened intently, inspired by the example they had just witnessed. As the colonel prepared to leave, he turned to Daniel one last time. "Remember this, soldier," he said. "It is not always about being seen, but when the right people notice, it can make a difference far greater than you imagine. Keep doing what you do. Quiet, honest service is never wasted." Daniel nodded, his respect for the colonel deepening. The man had not only recognized his work, but had also reinforced the values he already held dear. As the black car drove away, the barracks slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Soldiers resumed drills, equipment was checked, and daily routines continued. Yet there was a new energy in the air. Daniel's quiet diligence had been recognized, and it created a ripple effect. Soldiers talked about what they had witnessed, some reflecting on their own habits, others inspired to take initiative without waiting for orders. Daniel, meanwhile, returned to his duties with the same calm focus, quietly satisfied but not seeking further attention. That afternoon, the barracks felt different, though subtle. The grass glistened in the sunlight, lines perfectly straight and neat, a testament to Daniel's dedication. But beyond the visual result, there was something deeper, a lesson in integrity, humility, and the impact of quiet service. Daniel had not sought recognition, yet it had found him, carried not by loud announcements but by sincere acknowledgement from someone who truly understood the meaning of duty. The next morning, the barracks felt different. A quiet energy filled the air, almost like something important had shifted overnight. Soldiers moved about with a little more focus, paying attention to small details that might have gone unnoticed before. Daniel arrived early as usual, carrying his mower. The lawns were already neat from yesterday, but he checked them carefully, straightening small patches and removing a few stubborn weeds. Doing the work properly mattered to him, not the recognition, but he could sense that others had begun to notice the value of small, quiet efforts. Word had spread quickly among the soldiers. Many had witnessed the colonel's inspection or heard about it from those who had. Some were inspired, some curious, and some reflective. They had seen a soldier, one of their own, recognized for quiet dedication and humility. It was not the medals or ceremony that mattered. It was the lesson that real effort, even without immediate reward, was never wasted. The barracks, a place usually filled with routine and order, now seemed to carry a sense of respect for quiet contributions. As Daniel worked, a few younger soldiers approached. "Daniel," one said shyly, "can you show us how you keep the lawn looking so neat?" Daniel paused, smiled gently, and nodded. He began explaining his methods, showing them how to adjust the mower blades, how to remove weeds carefully, and how to maintain straight lines. He did not boast, did not take credit for himself. Instead, he spoke simply, emphasizing care, patience, and pride in doing things correctly. The younger soldiers listened intently, inspired not just by the techniques but by Daniel's approach to service. Meanwhile, higher-ranking officers had not forgotten the previous day. The colonel had left the base, but the ripple of his recognition remained. Soon a message arrived from the office of the base commander. Daniel was called to the main office. Walking through the barracks, he felt a quiet sense of anticipation. Though he had not sought recognition, something inside him understood that this moment was important, not for himself, but for the example it could set. Soldiers watching him pass nodded respectfully, some quietly grateful for the lessons of humility and dedication they had witnessed. Inside the office, the atmosphere was formal but warm. The colonel, along with the base commander, stood waiting. Daniel straightened and saluted. The colonel returned the salute with a firm, approving nod. "Daniel," the colonel began, "I wanted to make sure you understand the impact of your work, not just on the lawns but on the morale and example you set for everyone here." Daniel nodded, listening carefully. He had never thought of mowing lawns as having any kind of impact beyond neat grass, yet here it was, shaping the behavior and attitude of the soldiers around him. The base commander spoke next. "Your initiative and humility are rare qualities. Many people perform their duties because they are told to, but few go beyond expectation without seeking attention. Today we recognize not just your work, but your character." He handed Daniel a small certificate of appreciation. Daniel accepted it respectfully, bowing slightly. It was a formal acknowledgement. Yet the true value lay not in paper, but in the understanding that quiet service mattered. As Daniel left the office, he was met by a group of fellow soldiers. They clapped softly, some shaking his hand, others offering smiles of respect. For the first time, Daniel felt the full weight of recognition from his peers. It was not loud or boastful, but it was sincere. He thanked them quietly, emphasizing that he had only done what he thought was right. Yet the example had been noticed, and it inspired others to consider how their own small actions could make a difference. The rest of the day passed with a renewed sense of purpose. Soldiers moved more carefully, taking pride in small tasks that often went unnoticed. The barracks looked cleaner, more organized, and the energy among the team improved. Daniel continued his work, mowing other areas, trimming small patches, and assisting anyone who asked. He did so not because of awards or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. The recognition he received had only reinforced his belief in service, humility, and responsibility. Later that evening, Daniel sat quietly on a bench near the now pristine lawns. The sun was setting, casting golden light over the grass, highlighting the neat lines and trimmed edges. He thought about the events of the past 2 days, the morning work, the colonel's visit, the acknowledgement from his peers and leaders. He realized that his quiet efforts had a ripple effect. What he had thought were small, insignificant actions were, in fact, shaping a culture of diligence, care, and respect. Daniel also reflected on his own values. He had always believed that recognition was not necessary for doing the right thing. Helping others, serving quietly, and performing tasks well were rewards in themselves. Yet the acknowledgement from the colonel and the base commander confirmed that integrity and dedication did not go unnoticed forever. It could inspire others even without intention, and that was a powerful lesson. The younger soldiers who had watched him work earlier came by again. "Daniel," one said, "we want to help keep the barracks looking this good. Can we work with you tomorrow?" Daniel smiled, seeing the spark of responsibility in their eyes. "Of course," he said. "It's not about being perfect. It's about doing your best and helping each other. That's what makes a team strong." They nodded, eager to learn and participate, understanding that even simple actions like mowing a lawn could contribute to something greater. As night fell over the base, the barracks lights glowed softly. The lawns remained neatly trimmed, a quiet symbol of dedication and pride. Daniel walked back to his quarters, feeling a sense of contentment that words could not fully capture. He had not sought recognition, yet he had been recognized, not for himself, but for the values he represented: humility, initiative, and quiet service. These qualities, now noticed by leaders and peers alike, would continue to influence the base long after the colonel's visit. In the days that followed, the barracks continued to flourish. Soldiers began to take initiative in their own small ways, cleaning shared spaces, organizing supplies, and paying attention to details they had previously overlooked. Daniel's example had created a culture of quiet excellence, showing that true leadership often came from actions, not titles or rank. The colonel's acknowledgement was a moment in time, but its impact lasted much longer. It reminded everyone that even the simplest acts of care could have profound effects. Daniel, as always, remained humble. He continued to mow the lawns, assist others, and maintain the barracks with quiet dedication. But now he did so knowing that his actions mattered, not because of awards or recognition, but because they inspired others, reinforced values, and strengthened the community around him. He had learned and had taught others that integrity, humility, and perseverance could change the environment in ways no one could always see, yet everyone could feel. The story of the quiet soldier who mowed the lawns outside the barracks spread slowly, first through whispers among the soldiers, then through official reports, and finally through personal reflections. Daniel never sought the attention. He never wanted it, but through his actions he became an example of what it meant to serve well, lead quietly, and live with integrity. And in that way, he left a lasting impression, not just on the barracks but on the hearts and minds of everyone who witnessed his dedication.